Hey, what's up everyone? For today's video, I'm going to be doing something a little different than usual. Fracture's been out for a while now, and although the meta on that map isn't yet finalized, we still have a decent idea of what agents are good on that map and which ones aren't. So for today's video, I'm going to be going over what I believe the best team compositions are for Fracture. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Unlike some of the other maps in the game, Fracture doesn't have one specific comp that's really strong. There's a lot of flexibility in what agents you can play on this map, especially in solo queue. That being said, I do believe that there are a few core agents that you should have in pretty much every comp. That core is Breach, Raze, and any controller, but preferably a Viper. Starting with Breach, he's probably the strongest agent on this map, and if you don't have one, you'll be at quite a large disadvantage. The reason he's so strong is because there's so many narrow hallways on this map, which makes his E extremely difficult to dodge. You can stun B main from sight. You can stun Arcade if you want to push and play for the orb. You can stun A main from rope. And you can honestly even stun drop if enemies are pushing from there. And in all of these locations, if you're able to time it correctly, the stun is pretty much undodgeable. These hallways are also really nice for Breach because they make it really hard to get to safety if you get flashed. The next core agent we have on this list is Raze. Similar to why Breach is so strong, there are so many tight areas on this map that also make Raze really strong. Her nade's extremely good at clearing out A site and makes playing site very difficult for defenders. Another great spot for the nade is if a player's playing in the corner of B site, which is also a free kill if you have a Raze. Also, there's usually at least one player that tends to play on site during post plant, so when retaking it really helps with fishing those players out. Another big reason you should have a Raze is because she's a really good duelist for following up on Breach's CC. Her mobility allows her to quickly get on top of enemies that Breach stuns with his E or his ult and makes it very easy to confirm those kills. An example of a pro team using this would be Gambit during Champions Finals, who attempted this combination in A main to take the space for free. Although a player wasn't playing here during this round, it's easy to see how if a player was, that this would have been a free kill. For the last core agent, we have a controller. Any controller can fit here, but I'm going to be talking about Viper since I personally believe she's the strongest one on this map, but all of them are viable options. The reason I think Viper is so strong is because for site executions, there are a lot of areas you need to smoke off that basic smokes just can't. On A site, there are 3 areas that you need to smoke off, assuming everyone's going A main. If you don't have a player pushing drop, an enemy could be playing there, so you'll have to smoke that off, but players can also be playing link and rope. A Viper wall on the other hand can be placed down in a way that blocks off all 3 of these areas. So if you don't have a Viper, you almost need a player to clear out drop pretty much every time if you want to push A. On top of that, Viper's also one of the hardest controllers to push with her smokes and her mollies. So she also adds that extra strength on defense that's very welcome on Fracture that feels more attacker sided. And that's all for the core 3 agents. So with that, I'm going to be giving you some viable options to help round out the comp, and there are a ton of options on this map. Besides the core 3, there's a lot of variety on this map and a lot of agents can work. When it comes to Sentinels, all of them are viable. For duelists, you can play Jett, Reyna, and probably even Neon. Although she is very new, so I don't really want to say too much about her, but I do feel like her stun is very good at covering both sites from early playtesting. For the controllers, again, all of them are viable options. And finally, for initiators, both Skye and KO are viable. Sova's not that strong of a pick on this map, so I would try to stay away from him. When it comes to what I would consider the strongest comp, I do think that it's a double controller comp. I would say the 5 agents are Raze, Breach, Viper, Astra, and Chamber. Having another smoker on the team is really nice for retaking sites, since a lot of the time Viper's going to put her wall down early. This makes those site retakes a lot easier. Also, Astra's probably the most ideal pick because her other utility is just so strong, especially on defense. Her Gravity Well is one of the best abilities in the game, and her ultimate's also really strong for getting onto sites or for post plants. She also pairs really well with Raze. Plus, having a Viper, Astra, and a Chamber makes defending on this map become so much easier. Chamber's also the preferred pick over some of the other Sentinels because of 2 main reasons. For starters, his bots don't have a maximum range, which makes him more ideal than Killjoy for defaulting on attack, since you can place one down on each side of the map to hold off flanks, which is something him and Cypher have in common. But on top of that, you'll notice that the comp doesn't have a Jett and instead has a Raze. This makes Chamber a nice addition to the comp because he adds the option of having an Opera on the team. So with that, you get a nice, well-rounded comp that's very flexible, but again, this isn't the only viable composition. If you don't want to play double controller, you can also switch out the Astra for a Jett. And if you have a Jet, then Chamber is no longer necessary, so you can replace him with the Cypher. This comp makes your team much more aggressive for site executes if you want to play a little faster of a game with the double duelist. Cypher also doesn't have a max range for his trips similar to Chamber, so he's also good for defaults and deterring enemies from pushing and flanking. This comp is also very well rounded and a great option in solo queue. Another option I did want to talk about is Killjoy. She can be very powerful, but the problem with her is that her kit makes your team's playstyle very one-dimensional on attack. It's hard to default with her since her bots have a max range, so if you do have one, the most popular strategy with her is to farm the ult orbs around the map with her. This allows you to have her ultimate up pretty much every 2 or 3 rounds on attack, and then use the ult either in tunnel or in A drop to take either of the sites. There are, however, a couple of problems with this. For one, players have already started to play around this by fighting for the orbs as well, making it more of a battle to farm them up. On top of that, Breach is a must pick on Fracture, and his Aftershock is the best counter to a Killjoy ultimate, only costing 200 credits, and being able to break it through walls including the floor into tunnel. But if an enemy team doesn't have a Breach, you can facilitate a Killjoy ult spam strategy, and it can be very effective depending on the rank you're in and how well the enemy can adapt to it. Sage is also not a bad pick. I personally don't like her as the only Sentinel since her kit doesn't have anything to hold down flanks, but if played with another Sentinel like Cypher or Chamber, she can be a nice option. Her wall is nice for blocking off areas to get your team onto either of the sites, either blocking off the site from A main to allow your team to cross, or on B main to help your team get onto site. She's also not bad for walling off an area of the map, either drop or B main, to lower the number of areas your team needs to worry about on defense. Finally, I also wanted to bring up Brimstone, who's also a great controller for this map. Both of the sites on this map are very small, and because of that, his ultimate can get a lot of value. As I've said before, there's usually at least one player playing on site during post plant on this map, and on both sites this makes Brim's ult a free kill. On A site, if a player's playing either on the top of the site or tucked in the lower side, this ult will get them pretty much every time. And on B site, you can either ult site if a player's stuck in the corner, or even in tower if you know someone's playing there. He also has the unique ability of being able to put down 3 smokes at the same time. This actually allows him to better smoke A site on attack since he can cover all 3 choke points. So, if you're a big fan of Brim, this is honestly one of the better maps to play him on. He also gives you another option to break a KJ ult if your team needs it, so that's another plus as well. And that's everything you need to know about team compositions on Fracture. Hopefully this guide helped you out and you now have a better idea of what agents to play on the map. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful, don't forget to leave a like. If you want to catch me live, I stream every Saturday at 10 AM EST on Twitch at twitch.tv/JitterzVal. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter, I post updates on there pretty often. There's also my Discord community which you can join with tons of other Valorant players chatting in there every day. There are links to all those in the description if you're interested. Finally, don't forget to subscribe for more Valorant related content.